New York is the center of photography that I can tell.
New York is the most exciting place on earth. It is impossible to be bored for 1 second in this city.
The birds come in here from the north, from the south, from the east, and the west, and it's kind of like that with people from all over the world.
New York, I think, is the real mecca for everything.
It's where all my inspiration comes from.
Coming to New York was to have the whole world come to me.
It's rough, it's easy, it's fun. Sometimes you hate it, sometimes you love it.
It's the place where I feel more comfortable trying to do everything I want.
But I moved here and everyone was a photographer that I met, and everyone knew someone that did photography, and so it was really exciting to be here.
It's a great place to exchange energy, and it still is. New York is a pretty dynamic place.
I think master printers are people who work collectively with their artists to really bring out their vision. I don't think it's the master printer who should be putting their own spin on the work. I've always felt that it is a collaborative process, and your job is to really be a good listener and help understand what it is that the artist is looking for to produce that final image.
It's very common, especially many of the very well-known photographers throughout history, always had dedicated people to do their printing for them. I mean, it's not unlike, seriously, it's not unlike some of the great Renaissance artists. Da Vinci didn't do all his own drawings. He had people assist him in doing the drawings for him. When you have people that can carry out your ideas better than you can, and even add some value to it that you can't, that's when your best work comes out.
A good printer is someone who maybe they have some intuitiveness, like let's say making coffee is not too different than making a print. But the best thing is when it arrives to somebody and they're happy. And they might not like the milk that I like. They might not like the roast that I like, but they like when they arrives and they're happy, I'm happy.
There's a craft, a real craft to doing great black and white prints. When you're doing it yourself, you're kind of moving from being a hobbyist to a good printer. You're printing because it's fun, you enjoy it. But just like in so many of the creative arts, working in a collaborative, scenario versus on your own is when you're going to get the best work possible. And there's a point where you really need to turn your printing over to the real pros at it, because they will bring something out in it that you won't be able to do yourself.
The whole approach here is for the master printer to work in close collaboration, develop a conversation with the artist or the photographer. And each master printer has his own chamber, so to speak, where he meets with the artist. Typically the work has to be scanned first. We have an excellent scanning department. And then Esteban will image the scanned file and create some proofs for the artist to come and review on the wall here with the proper lighting. And so they can discuss all the values of the print, and perhaps the next iteration of the print might be the final print or not. It all depends how it goes. It could be a prolonged conversation sometimes, because we pursue the subject to great length sometimes. So that's what the master printer does.
I was a photographer, so I built a darkroom and started playing around. And then I wanted to do some outside of the box because most of the printing was done up to 20 by 24. And I wanted to move outside of that dimension, so there weren't too many people doing it. So I had to kind of figure it out along with friends and partners. And then it seems like other people had some interest also. And then I need to make some money, so I got some clients. And that's how it started out.
When I was in my home country, which is Ecuador, I started doing black and white photography when I was 12 years old. I had created an enlarger through the roof because the lack of electricity. The electricity wasn't really stable in my town, and that was my source of light to do photography. I said, someday I'm going to go to New York and work in photography. I had my portfolio, and I showed these prints to my manager, and he really liked it. I said, give me the opportunity. I will not fail you. Just give me the opportunity. From that day on, I'm still here.
My name is Eli Keneally. I am a black and white silver gelatin printer. When I was younger, my brother and I got into inline skating, and my brother and his friends were older and much better than me, so I was turned into the designated photographer. So I started taking pictures of them doing their grinds and their tricks and stuff. And then my mom was the one that suggested, oh, you should take a photo class. And my first teacher, he was a photographer for a skateboarding magazine. So the first time I printed was one of his pictures. He gave me his negative just to test it out, and it was something he shot with a big fisheye lens of a skateboarder doing a big ollie or something like that. And I was just blown away. I loved it. I loved seeing the image appear. I loved being in the darkroom and the smell and the chemicals, and I was kind of just hooked. And I started interning here at Griffin, and I was blown away by what the printers did and the work they did, and the scale they printed, because they would sometimes print these really big murals, like huge prints that I'd never seen before. And I made it clear that that's what I wanted to do. I said, that's what I wanted to do, and yeah, they started training me, and I went into the dark room, and I've kind of been in there ever since.
Like most people, I had a dark room in my bathroom as a teenager, and my father gave me a camera, a Rolleiflex, and that's how I started, just taking pictures in Berkeley, California. When I first started working for Charlie, I told him, I almost feel like paying you to work here, because I never would have met, the first people I printed for was Cindy Sherman. It was like a master class in art and photography.
You come through here, you see the images on the wall that you're going to see around the world in museums and galleries. It kind of wakes you up a bit. It's like, what's going on here? This is not my normal life, This is something special going on here.
I primarily work on murals for Hiroshi Sugimoto. I've probably printed over 500 different images for him, in editions also, times 8 for each one of those, over the last 22 years or so. So that's about 95 or 6% of what I do is just for him, 50 by 60 mural size. I've been recently doing some 94 by 50 prints for him. So I'm a mural specialist, I'd say.
The most fun is to be so close to a work of art and to participate in it in a way, and to in a way get somehow into one side of the mind of the artist, and the most challenging is the same, is to try to read the artist's mind and see and put it on paper.
I spend a long time in the beginning cleaning the negative and cleaning the glass for the enlarger, for the negative holder. I take a long look at the sample print that I get, and then I just try to adapt it for the big size. Like, things change when they get bigger. You know, contrast sort of opens up as the print gets bigger. So it's trying to translate it into a bigger size. And it often works pretty easily, but it can be a bit of a pain. You know, things get more difficult as they get bigger because of the paper handling. You know, you'll spend all day working on a print, then it'll get ruined drying, you know, or it'll get ruined, you know, many different ways. So. And there's because we don't have an easel printing big, you have to measure the crop physically on the wall. Although, like, dodging and burning is much easier because it's a big space. The times for the prints are a lot longer, so you can sort of relax into it most of the time. That's my favorite part, actually, being in there, maybe listening to a book on tape, or, you know, listening to NPR, and just trying to figure out the puzzle of the print, you know, and it's always a puzzle, you know.
I've always believed in the image isn't finished until it's printed and hanging on the wall. I think the idea of holding something tactile in your hands and experiencing that is still the most important part of photography.
In the era that I was first photographing music and music live, which was like the mid-70s, the atmosphere in the industry was much different than it is today. The bands that I was photographing, I was getting to know, they were also trying to make it. This was all new to them. As a photographer, I was trying to hone my craft as well. That contributed to this incredible casualness on stage, casualness in the environment. I could show up usually at sound check, roam around, get some ideas of the angles, talk to some of the band members, say hello, you know, see what's new with each other, take some casual shots. But there was just no restrictions. I had been approached by Backstreet's Publishing to do a book on my Springsteen work, specifically the work on this show that he did at the Harvard Square Theater in 1974, where the critic in the house declared, "I have seen the future of rock and roll, and his name is Bruce Springsteen." It turned out to be a show that was a real turning point in his career, because he was very close to being dropped by the record label at the time, Sales Were Poor. And it's one of those nights that legends are made of. This image particular presented a lot of challenges, as in a lot of the photographs from that night. Basically, we're dealing with film that was push to stop in minimal light, so you know the grain is going to be exaggerated, is a good way to put it. But in the grain is the detail. So it had all the ranges that you want to see in a photo, like solid blacks and good whites, but it's the images, it's the cones in between that if you don't bring them to life, it's going to look like a highly contrast print, which is not what we wanted. So I worked with Eric and his team to basically look at and analyze it, and really pull out all the little detail that's just perfect.
Like, you can still see his ear over here, and the look of the symbol that comes through in the grain of the film. And I think that's really the beauty of your silver print here, is that we're able to retain a lot in areas that you could see detail that is in the film.
My name is Marcelle Murdoch. I'm the gallery director here at Morrison Hotel Gallery, New York. And we specialize in music photography, mainly rock and roll, but we do a bit of everything as well. Collectors, when they come to the gallery, what they're really looking for is, I mean, first and foremost, you know, a specific musician or era or genre. Maybe it's a musician that they saw when they were younger, it's a memory, it's, you know, something their parents listened to, whatever it is. And then they definitely prefer something that's rare, that's limited edition, always hand-signed, and obviously the paper as well is very important, that it's an archival or museum quality paper.
You know, when you walk into a gallery where there are numerous photographs hanging on the wall, it's a collective experience that you don't get unless those images are printed.
The beauty about silver gelatin, well, first is like one of the oldest printing process that has survived. And also it has this ancient technique. It's black and white. I mean, we do color now and we're still doing black and white and we still want to see images in black and white. The second part about silver gelatin is like even though it was developed so long ago, it's still the most archival print process that exists. And the most beautiful is silver gelatin is almost looking into a window. It has dimension. And I don't see that in other types of print. And there's substance in a silver gelatin print.
So the photographic paper that we use are silver gelatin. So there's that little magic of light and chemistry that's holding this image. You know, there's light being shown onto the print. The light goes through the emulsion, kind of hits the silvers or whatever metal halides are in there and bounces around. So there's a dynamic light thing going on inside of a photographic print. Whereas an inkjet print, there's inks and they have different reflective surfaces, so it's a very immediate experience. Not to say that one is better than the other, but one might be a little bit more charming than the other. The photographic prints are in that little kind of a jewel sort of realm. When you see it, you're like, there's something special with that one.
Silver prints in general are just beautiful. They have a great amount of depth. You can feel the light in the print. Like it's sort of like looking at Vermeer. You can feel the light inside of a Vermeer painting.
15 years ago, we were very excited to learn from the Ilford/Harman company that they had developed a fiber-based digital panchromatic paper, which was designed to be used with tricolor RGB laser printers.
We do analog printing here, so everything by hand, but we also do a lot of digital assisted printing. DDA's takes care of all of what we call laser exposed silver gelatin prints.
My name is Didier Bahamon, and I'm working in Griffin Editions about 16 years. For this process, which is the digital process, to expose the paper in the analog darkroom you use enlarger. In this digital, you use the laser expose the paper, and then I take the roll and I process manually through a developer, stop and fix, and I can actually after that tone and do some other extra work on the paper that is not usually possible with processors and other kind of techniques of development.
These are silver gelatin prints, traditional silver gelatin prints that the emulsion is formulated to respond to very short duration exposures, which is what occurs when the emulsion is exposed to laser light. It's a very short duration. So the emulsion is very sensitive to that, and also it's a full spectrum sensitivity. So it has to be done in the dark, it has to be processed in the dark, and DDA has become a master at processing silver gelatin paper in complete darkness.
I'm sitting in front of a fairly wide Stephen Shore print that he shot as part of his work on the sidewalks of New York. And as you can see, it's about 8 or 10 feet wide. It works perfectly with either the Lambda or the LightJet laser printer. It gives us an excellent Dmax. It's tuned to the red, green, and blue light sources.
We had talked about, all the shadow detail, which is just phenomenal in here. The highlight details are all preserved in a really natural way, but it's not flat. It's still got plenty of contrast, and to get that balance of all those different tonal ranges, we can do a separate level of contrast and density just for this area, and then a separate one just for the highlights where it's getting bright, but you don't want to blow out the detail. And so many local corrections that you can do to just keep the whole thing exactly where you want tonally.
What is that makes a great print? That's a good question. From a printer's point of view, you hold the highlights and bring all the shadow detail, have all the detail possible in the image. We want to see everything. From an artistic point of view, that's a slightly different thing. It's to bring what the artist is looking for. And since it's art, everything is right.
One of the things I've learned is, artists kind of like to push the limits. Not everyone wants the blackest black or a true white. People like to play around in the middle. And I think what really makes a good print is if I can really interpret what the artist or the client has in their mind, understand that and have it come across through the prints that I make.
I want to feel the artwork, not the print. I just want to get what the artist is trying to relate. And then if the print is doing a good job, it's not part of the conversation. Basically, it should be something that's facilitating a vision.
Even if you make it the same one many times, it's just your touch. It's unique. So that makes it good to you and other people.
The picture in my back, the bullfighter, was taken in the year 1962. I was pretty young at that time, and I started doing photography when I was probably 12 years of age. This particular shot was taken with a 35mm Agfa camera. Printing this image for the first time, for me, it was like a magic. Something like I had tasted the most beautiful cake in my lifetime, and I wanted to have it here because for me this is a great memory in the beginning of my career in photography. In photography, sometimes you can find a unique moment that it takes just in a split of a second. If you miss it, you miss it forever. And talking about these people in particular, it was like I was sync my camera with the action. It was just done at the perfect moment when everything was in motion. And that is pretty much the beauty of it. It's about capturing the moment.